My husband left me at a gas station as a joke. His friends were in on it, laughing on a group call. I said, I hope you laughed enough because I sent this call to your boss. The next day, 3 of them were fired, and my husband got served. My name is Corinne, and I'm 41 years old. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, where the mountains cradle you like a secret and time sometimes feels slower, more deliberate. I work from home as a legal transcriptionist. It's not glamorous, but it pays well, and I've grown to like the solitude. After 12 years of marriage, solitude had become a kind of safety net I didn't realize I was holding on to. Brennan, my husband, worked in commercial real estate. He was always busy, always on a call, always rushing somewhere, even if it was just to the store. His phone was an extra limb. He developed a certain arrogance over the years, one that settled in quietly and made a home in our marriage. Still, I stayed. You stay when you've built something, until you realize it's built on sand. It was a Saturday in early March, cold but sunny, the kind of day where the wind bites, but the sun coaxes you to believe spring might be around the corner. We were on our way back from a weekend at a friend's cabin in the Smokies. It was supposed to be a couple's retreat, but somewhere along the way, it turned into the guys drink and act like frat boys while the women exchange tired glances and scroll Instagram. Brennan had been off all weekend. Laughing too hard at his phone, nudging his friends with inside jokes I was clearly not meant to understand. Something about it felt layered. I noticed it but said nothing. I had grown used to the version of Brennan who communicated more with his friends than with me. He wasn't cruel, not exactly. Just careless. Indifferent, in a way that felt louder than yelling. We were about 2 hours from home when he announced we needed gas. He pulled into a BP station off I-40 near Marion. I offered to grab us drinks and a snack while he filled up. He tossed me a "thanks, babe," without looking up from his phone. I went inside, walked past the aisles lined with faded chip bags and lukewarm hot dogs, and picked out a Coke and a bag of trail mix. I stood in line behind a man arguing about scratch-off tickets, my eyes half on the rotating hot dog roller and half on the digital clock above the counter. When I walked back outside, Brennan was gone. At first, I froze. Maybe he pulled around the side. Maybe he had to use the restroom and parked somewhere else. I walked the length of the building twice, my sneakers scuffing against the worn pavement. I looked across the pumps, even wandered briefly inside again. But no, he was gone. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a FaceTime call. Brennan's name flashed across the screen. I answered. His face appeared, grinning like a schoolboy who just stuck gum under a desk. Behind him, Dean, Miguel, and Trevor, his coworkers and weekend drinking buddies, were doubled over in laughter. Corinne. Oh my God, you should have seen your face, Brennan said between wheezes. Dean leaned into the frame, laughing uncontrollably. You were just standing there. Like, legit confused. Priceless. Miguel added, we've been planning this all weekend. I didn't say a word, just stared into the phone. Behind me, a man pumping diesel glanced over, his brow furrowed with either concern or pity, I couldn't tell. Trevor, red-faced from laughter, said, come on, it's just a prank. We were gonna swing back in like 10 minutes. That's when I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something slower, deeper. A low thrum of disbelief, like the moment when a picture frame falls off the wall for no reason, and you just stare at the space where it used to be. I didn't hang up. I sat down on the curb in front of the gas station, set the phone on speaker, and reached into my purse for my second phone. Most people don't have 2 phones. But I've been through things. Identity theft. A scare with a former client. Over time, you learn to separate your life into compartments. The second phone? It was for work. Secure, encrypted, nothing fancy, just safe. What they didn't know was that earlier that day, I'd recorded about 20 minutes of audio in the car. Brennan had left his Bluetooth connected, and I had been doing some transcription editing. The mic had picked up everything while they laughed and plotted, mocking me like I was a sitcom character. I wasn't even trying to record them. It just happened. I hadn't planned to use it. Until now. While they kept laughing, I quietly forwarded the audio file to an email address I knew well, hr@*****.com. Brennan's company was strict. They dealt with high-stakes contracts and multi-million-dollar clients. Their image was everything. The audio included Brennan saying, she's so uptight lately. Needs to be knocked down a peg. This'll do it. It took all of 3 minutes to send. I looked up at the mountains beyond the gas station, their tips still frosted with snow, and realized that my heart was beating slower than it had in weeks. When Brennan finally circled back, 30 minutes later, still chuckling, I was already gone. My sister, who lived 20 minutes away, had picked me up. I didn't say a word during the ride. I stared out the window as pine trees blurred past, each mile peeling away a layer of shame I didn't know I was carrying. Brennan came home hours later. I was in the living room with my overnight bag packed, sitting beside a manila envelope. He walked in holding flowers, his grin already fading. "Come on, Corinne. It was a joke. You're overreacting." I stood up and handed him the envelope. "You've been served." He blinked. "What is this?" "Divorce papers," I said. "And yes, I know about Lacey. I've known for 6 months." His mouth opened, ready to deny, to lie, to charm, but he closed it instead. Maybe he saw something in my face he hadn't seen in years. Maybe he realized that the line he crossed wasn't just about a prank. It was about everything that came before it, and everything he thought I'd tolerate. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Miguel's wife. "Thank you. I had no idea what kind of man I married." By noon, my friend Clara, who worked in HR at Brennan's company, called me. "Corinne, 3 of them were fired this morning. Brennan's being reviewed, but honestly, his file's already in the exec office. They're not going to keep him." I sat in my tiny apartment, looking at the morning light pouring through the half-closed blinds. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. But it was mine. There's something surreal about starting over at 41. You look around and realize you've been living on autopilot for so long, you forgot what your own voice sounded like. I spent weeks unpacking boxes, not just of things but of memories, doubts, compromises I didn't know I'd made. The thing is, it wasn't just the gas station. That was just the match. The fuel had been piling up for years, silent dinners, cold shoulders, the way he dismissed my work as typing and called my anxiety dramatic. He never hit me, never screamed. He just eroded me. Slowly, day by day, like water carving into stone. And the moment I realized that he'd rather humiliate me for laughs than protect me in public, that was the moment the last piece fell into place. I had been a ghost in my own life. But ghosts don't forward emails. Women who are done do. The days that followed were slow and disjointed. I felt like I was living between moments, stuck in that blurry space between shock and clarity. I kept expecting my emotions to crash down on me, rage, sorrow, guilt, but mostly I felt still. Like I had stepped out of a moving train and the world hadn't noticed I was missing. Brennan texted a few times. The first one came the night after I left. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think you'd take it like that." I didn't reply. The next day, "You could have handled this privately. You didn't have to ruin people's careers." That one made my hand curl into a fist. Then, "You're really going through with this? After everything?" I turned off my phone for a while after that. Meanwhile, my sister, Yvonne, became my anchor. She helped me furnish my apartment, brought me dishes she didn't use anymore, helped me hang curtains, sat with me in silence when there weren't words, and laughed when I needed to feel human again. "You know," she said one evening as we drank tea on the balcony, "when Mom passed, I always thought you were the strong one." "I'm not," I said softly. She looked at me. "No, you are. You just forgot." The HR fallout became the stuff of office gossip. Clara updated me in whispers, carefully edited not to betray confidence. Miguel and Trevor were fired immediately. Dean had already been on thin ice and was escorted out the same day. Brennan's fate was more complicated. He was a senior associate, and the company wanted to avoid press. He was suspended with pay pending a full review. That review turned up more than just the prank. Apparently, there were other complaints. A pattern of inappropriate conduct and emails that didn't reflect company values. Clara texted me one morning. "They're letting him go. Severance package, NDA, the works. He's pissed." That same day, Brennan showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock, sharp and fast, and I knew. I opened the door slowly. He stood there in a faded hoodie, his hair a mess, holding his phone like it was a shield. "You really did it," he said. I leaned against the frame. "Yes, they fired me." I didn't say anything. He looked around, as if trying to find something to criticize. His eyes landed on the modest rug in the hallway. "Nice place," he said flatly. I could see the anger behind his eyes. Not rage, pride wounded, ego bruised. He thought I would be too scared to follow through. "You could have just talked to me," he said. I laughed once. "When? During your prank call? Or when you were sneaking off with Lacey?" He flinched. "That had nothing to do with this. Didn't it?" He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And maybe he didn't. Maybe the version of me that let things slide, let herself be overlooked and talked over, was finally gone. "I hope it was worth it," he said. I didn't answer. I just closed the door. Later that night, I cried for the first time. Not because I missed him, but because of everything I gave. The years. The energy. The way I folded myself smaller to fit inside his world. I cried for the woman who stayed when she should have left, and the woman who finally left when no one thought she would. The next few weeks were full of awkward firsts. Grocery shopping alone. Cooking for one. Sitting in the silence of my apartment without the hum of another person nearby. But slowly, it started to feel okay. One morning, I got a call from a law office that needed a full-time transcriptionist. The pay wasn't amazing, but it came with benefits and a real desk and coworkers who said good morning without sneering. I took it. My first day was nerve-wracking. I wore slacks that felt too formal and shoes that pinched. But as I sat at that desk, listening to legal jargon in my headphones, I realized something. This wasn't just a job. It was a restart. I started walking in the evenings. Sometimes around my complex, sometimes down to the French Broad River. I let the wind tangle my hair, listened to the trees, and let the stillness rebuild me. People talk about revenge like it's fire and fury. But sometimes, it's just peace. Choosing yourself. Living better. Letting the silence speak louder than your screams ever could. By mid-spring, my world had settled into something resembling normal. Not the normal I had known before Brennan, or even during those 12 suffocating years. This was a quieter normal, one where the days were stitched together with small, deliberate acts of self-respect. I began taking a pottery class on Thursday nights. It was held in a converted barn outside of town, run by a soft-spoken woman named Maris who had strong hands and a gentleness in her voice that made you feel safe. I was terrible at it. My bowls were lopsided, my cups too thick, but I didn't care. There was something deeply satisfying about working with clay, about shaping something from a lump into something vaguely useful. You're learning to be patient with yourself, Maris said once, as she watched me fumble with the wheel. Maybe she was right. Yvonne and I grew closer, too. It was strange, we'd lived just miles apart for years, but our relationship had been stretched thin by Brennan's presence. Now, we were rediscovering the sisterhood we'd had as kids. We cooked together on weekends. We watched bad movies. We didn't talk much about the past, but sometimes I'd catch her looking at me like she wanted to say something but didn't want to press. One night, I broke the silence. Did you know? I asked her gently. About him, she replied. I nodded. She looked down at her wine glass. I suspected. But you were so determined to stay. I didn't know how to bring it up without making you hate me. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Thank you for being here now. She smiled, eyes glistening. Always. I thought I'd be more afraid of being alone. But it turns out that loneliness and solitude aren't the same thing. Loneliness is heavy. Solitude is breathable. Still, the aftershocks came. Sometimes in the form of dreams where Brennan was still charming, still winning me over. Other times it was more subtle, seeing his brand of coffee in the grocery store and feeling my stomach knot. Or overhearing someone at work talk about their husband and wondering, briefly, if I had ever sounded proud like that. But more than anything, what haunted me wasn't the betrayal or even the cruelty, it was the fact that I hadn't seen it coming. That I had let myself become invisible in my own life. At work, I kept to myself. The other women in the office were kind enough, but I was the newly divorced one, and they treated me like a delicate vase, afraid their words might crack me. Except for one, Diana. She was a paralegal in her 50s, sharp-tongued and unfiltered. The first time we talked, she looked me up and down and said, "You're not as fragile as you look." Good. She started inviting me to lunch. We'd sit on the back steps of the building and eat sandwiches wrapped in wax paper while she told me stories about her exes, her kids, her 2 failed attempts at going vegan. You know what gets women through this stuff? She asked one afternoon. Other women. Not wine, not yoga, not screaming into the void. Just other women who've been through the same hell and live to laugh about it. I smiled. I don't think I'm laughing yet. You will. And slowly, I did. I began volunteering at a local animal shelter on Saturdays. Just a few hours a week, walking dogs, cleaning kennels, chatting with the staff. It grounded me. The animals didn't care who I used to be. They just wanted food, affection, and consistency. One of them, a skinny gray mutt with nervous eyes, took a liking to me. His name was Winston, and he followed me around like a shadow. After a month, I brought him home. He paced for hours that first night, unsure of this new quiet space. But eventually, he curled up by my feet, sighed deeply, and fell asleep. Watching him sleep, I felt something shift inside me again. Not a jolt, just a small, quiet thud. Like my heart reminding me it was still there. That weekend, I received a letter in the mail. Not a bill, not a flyer, an actual letter. The handwriting on the envelope was unfamiliar. Inside was a folded sheet of plain stationery. Corinne, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to try. I've had a lot of time to think. I was stupid, arrogant, and I lost the best thing I ever had. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. Brennan and I stared at the letter for a long time. There were no excuses. No pleas. Just 7 sentences written in neat, regretful penmanship. I folded it back up and placed it in a drawer. Some apologies aren't for accepting. They're just a full stop at the end of a sentence. Summer in Asheville is humid and stubborn, like the air itself is hanging onto you. Winston didn't mind it. He liked the long walks through the neighborhood trails, sniffing every rock and tuft of grass like it held the secrets of the universe. I let him lead sometimes, trusting his nose more than my sense of direction. We'd walk until my thoughts got quieter. At work, things had begun to change, too. Diana had taken me under her wing more officially, and I found myself staying late some evenings, helping her with document prep or listening to her rant about the incompetence of the junior partners. "You've got a good head for this stuff," she said one night as we closed up. "Ever thought about going back to school? Maybe something in paralegal work?" The thought startled me. School? At 41? But I nodded slowly. Maybe. It stuck with me all the way home. I started looking into online programs, dipping a toe into the idea of transformation. Not reinvention, not a total restart. Just evolution. Something that was mine. Something earned. One Friday, I ran into Clara at the grocery store. She looked relieved to see me and gave me a long hug, right in the middle of the frozen foods aisle. "I've been meaning to call," she said. "Brennan's, well, he's not doing great. I think he thought he could bounce back, but the industry's tight. Word got around." I shrugged. "That's not my problem anymore." She hesitated, then added, "He asked about you." That part didn't sit well. Not because I missed him, God no. But because a part of me still resented how long I had let his needs come before mine. Even hearing that he was still asking felt like he was trying to claim space in my life again. I brushed it off. He'll be fine. He always lands on his feet. I didn't ask for more details. I didn't want them. By August, I was enrolled in 2 online courses, Intro to Legal Writing and Office Procedures. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved it. I loved the feeling of my brain clicking into gear again, the soft hum of ambition I hadn't heard in years. Winston would curl up at my feet while I studied, occasionally pawing at my legs when it was time for a break. Yvonne came over one Saturday with a stack of old photo albums she found in her attic. "Remember these?" she said, dropping them on my kitchen table. We spent the afternoon flipping through them, laughing at our 90s outfits and middle school braces. There were photos of me and Brennan, 2 early ones, when we were both tan from hiking and smiling with that stupid, young kind of hope. I paused on one where he had his arm around me at the summit of Mount Mitchell. "Did we look happy?" I asked. Yvonne leaned in. "You look like you wanted to be." That night, after she left, I sat with that photo for a long time. I wasn't sad. I wasn't nostalgic. I just felt, outside of it, like I was looking at someone else's life. And maybe I was. There was a message waiting for me on my work email Monday morning. It was from the managing partner. He wanted to discuss a potential growth opportunity and asked if I'd come by his office after lunch. I sat in the chair opposite his desk, trying to hide my nerves. He smiled and folded his hands. "We've been impressed, Corinne. Diana says you've got strong instincts. We'd like to formally offer you a part-time assistant position under her, with a path to full-time if things continue this way." I blinked. "You're offering me a promotion?" He laughed. "Call it what you want. We just think you're ready for more." I said yes, of course. And when I told Diana, she just nodded like she already knew. "I told you." Not fragile. The promotion came with more responsibility and more hours, but I didn't mind. I liked the routine. I liked walking into the building knowing I had a place there. One afternoon, I was tidying up some case files when I heard someone say my name in the hallway. I recognized the voice before I saw him. Brennan. He was talking to the receptionist. I froze, my hands still on the filing cabinet. "Is she here?" he asked. My heart kicked against my ribs. I stepped out before anyone else could answer. "Brennan," I said, calmly. He turned, clearly startled to see me. He looked different, tired, thinner, his hair longer than he used to let it get. But his eyes were the same. Still searching. Still trying to calculate the angle. "I didn't mean to ambush you," he said quickly. I didn't know how else to find you. You found me." He glanced at the receptionist, then back at me. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I nodded slowly and led him outside, down the side of the building where the parking lot stretched empty. "I got your letter," I said. He nodded. I didn't expect a reply. I needed to say it. "Okay." He looked around. You look good. Happier. I am. There was a long pause. I've been in therapy, he said. Trying to figure out why I did what I did. Why I became that version of myself. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking for anything, Corinne. I swear. I just needed to see you. To know you're okay. I am. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. Good. We stood there in silence for a few more seconds. Then he turned and walked back to his car. I didn't watch him leave. Instead, I walked back inside, past the front desk and into the office where a new stack of case files waited. My life was waiting. Fall came in quietly, like a soft exhale. The heat broke, the leaves along the river turned to gold, and Winston began curling tighter at the foot of my bed, chasing something in his sleep. Work kept me busy. Diana and I had hit a rhythm, and I was starting to feel like more than just a cog in the machine. My courses were going well, better than I expected. Every test I passed felt like a quiet defiance of who Brennan used to tell me I was. That voice, his voice, that used to echo in the back of my mind, telling me I wasn't sharp enough, not tough enough for real challenges, it had gone quiet. Then, in early November, I received an invitation. It was from a former colleague of Brennan's, Alec, who had landed a senior role at a new tech firm in Durham. He was hosting a networking dinner and wanted to bring together some bright, driven women in the industry. He'd heard about my recent promotion through Clara and was impressed. I almost didn't go. The thought of being surrounded by people who once knew me only as Brennan's wife made my skin crawl. But Yvonne, ever the cheerleader, practically shoved me out the door. Go, she said. Let them see you as you are now. The dinner was held at a rooftop restaurant downtown. Small crowd, warm lighting, quiet music. Alec was kind, genuinely interested in what I'd been doing, not just polite curiosity. We talked shop for a while, and eventually, the topic of Brennan came up. I heard about what happened, Alec said, carefully. That prank thing, man, it blew up. Not gonna lie, it shook a lot of us. He was always charming, but I waited. There was a line, Alec continued. He crossed it and then some. Most of us saw it as a wake-up call. I nodded. I hope it was. He looked at me. You're doing well now. Really well. I am. He smiled. We're hiring, by the way. If you're ever ready to move up, let me know. You've got someone in your corner. That night, I drove home with the windows down. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt settled. A week later, Brennan emailed me. Subject, quick favor? Hi Corinne, I know this is unexpected, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to write a reference for me. Nothing big, just something simple. I'm trying to get back into consulting, and your word still carries weight in a few circles. I understand if the answer is no, but I figured it couldn't hurt to ask. Brennan and I stared at the email for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keys. Then I wrote back. Subject, quick favor? Hi Brennan, I appreciate you reaching out. Unfortunately, I'm not comfortable offering a reference at this time. I hope you understand. Best of luck. Corinne, he never replied. Weeks later, Clara told me he didn't get the job. That they'd called around. That they'd done their due diligence. You didn't say anything bad, right? She asked. I smiled. Didn't have to. December rolled in, and with it came a sense of quiet joy. I hosted a small holiday dinner. Just Yvonne, Diana, a couple of friends from pottery class. I made roast chicken, lit candles, poured too much wine. We laughed a lot. At one point, Diana raised her glass. To reinvention, she said. I lifted mine too. But I didn't toast to reinvention. I toasted to return. To remembering who I was before I let someone else define me. Winston barked at a pine cone under the tree, and everyone burst into laughter. Later, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights twinkled below. Cold air kissed my face. Somewhere behind me, the sound of conversation and clinking glasses filled my apartment. A life, fully mine, in motion.